Moving on to the Tampa Bay Lightning, they drafted a lot just outside the top 100, so it'll be interesting to see what their draft class pans out to be, but they did some interesting stuff. To start off at 118th, they drafted Jan Golicic. Now, I kinda liked what I saw of Jan Golicic last year before coming to North America, but he was playing in the Slovenian league, and that's not the best level of hockey there. But he was a very tall, rangy defenseman who could get around the ice pretty well. I liked his international footage from last year too and was pleasantly surprised to see him go in the CHL import draft. With Gatineau this year, it feels like he had trouble adjusting to the QMJHL pace of play. Guys could close in on him a little too quickly. He doesn't really have the skill level or the deception level to juggle multiple options, and he did turn over the puck a lot more than you would like. But you did still see the solid talent there, and at 118th overall, drafting a guy this tall who can skate like he does, yeah, you may as well see how things go. You give him a few more years, maybe he goes back to Europe for a little while, and you see where he's at then. It's an interesting selection, but I think there were better players out there now, but that doesn't mean Golicic can't develop into a really interesting option in a few years. At 128th, they drafted high school flavor of the week, Hagen Burrows. He played for one of the most dominant high school teams in Minnesota this year, and when I watched him at the USHL level, I wasn't really blown away. I know he was productive. He's an 05 born player coming out of high school, so I set my bar a little high for him, and this is around where I thought he probably should maybe go, but there were players that I just liked more from what I saw that played with more pace and more speed and more intensity. But Burrows moves the puck well. He's a nice guy who can quarterback a rush. It's just not always the quickest rushes that you're ever going to see, and that always concerns me when it comes to projecting to higher levels. But again, he's another one of these players with a pretty decent mind for the game, especially with the puck on his stick. You bet on him in college and see where he's at. At 149th, they made one of the more intriguing picks of the entire draft in Urho Alan. I thought he had a fantastic under-18 tournament. He's a little small, but he's zippy, he's quick, he's skilled, he played with a lot of pace, and when I went back and watched some of his junior footage in Finland, I didn't really see that, which was kind of weird. I'm not sure exactly what that's all about. Maybe it's camera trickery or whatever you want to call it, but I thought he looked really, really good at the under-18s and was hoping someone would take a flyer on him. Again, this is a guy you leave in Finland for a while and see what he turns into, but this is a bit of a top six or bust type pick for me, and I do think he has the chance of becoming a lot better than he is now, especially based on how he was at the under-18s, so around here is probably where you take a flyer on him. I just think he has a bit of a ways to go to become an NHL level player, but he's certainly a lot of fun and might have some interesting highlight gifs that you'll see on social media at some point in the future. At 181st, they drafted Kaden Petra. Now, this is a guy on the Flint Firebirds who I'm not as familiar with as others. I did watch him this year and came away thinking, yeah, I could see this guy getting drafted. I'm just not, thrilled about him. And it was the 6th round, so yeah, I could see where a player like that is valued in that area. He's an interesting player. He brings a lot of well-rounded traits to the game. Nothing that really jumps out at me whenever I watch him, but there were some moments with some really impressive skill one-on-one, getting through defenders, driving down the half wall, all that fun stuff, and there's maybe stuff you can bet on here with him. This wasn't a bad pick by any stretch. He has as good a chance as anyone else to make it. I just didn't see a whole lot that was really negative with him or really, really high-end, and that's also perfectly fine. At 195th, they drafted Muskegon Lumberjacks re-entry player Joe Connor. Now, Joe Connor's a guy who was on my watch list last year, and I did kind of like him, and this year, yeah, I think he did pretty well in a USHL follow-up season, and he's a decently skilled player who's a pretty smart off-puck defender as well. I just didn't see a guy who, again, moved the needle a whole lot for me to put him on the list at the end of the year. I did like what I saw this year, and you go to college, and you never know what he turns into, but this was a decently well-rounded selection similar to Kaden Petra that, I don't know, we'll see what happens. And then at 199th, I had a great time when I saw this guy's name go off the board, and Noah Steen, a twice undrafted player playing for Mora in Sweden. One of the Norwegian trifecta from that group, and he is no slouch. Michael Bronsek-Nygard obviously got picked in the first round. Petter Vesterheim unfortunately went undrafted again. We'll see how that goes for him. But Noah Steen is no slouch at all in that group of players. He is a highly skilled player with a ton of pace in his game. He's a physical player on the puck as well. You don't see it enough for me. I think he has a lot of upside though, and in this range of the draft, Yeah, you aim for upside, and while he's a little bit further along in his development trajectory, he didn't look out of place in the second division in Sweden this year, and you can just march him along slowly but surely from here. I think he's an interesting pick. He might be a bit of a long shot, but in isolation, he has some really, really fun moments, just like a guy like Urho Alan has had. At 206th, they drafted Lethbridge Hurricanes goaltender Harrison Menan. I saw him a little bit since the draft because I had never heard of him before, and he's a goalie who drove decently positive results on a team that wasn't the greatest, but they weren't bad. I don't know, he's a goaltender. He'll be something at some point, and I don't know exactly what it is. He didn't jump off the screen at me. There must be just someone on the Lightning staff who goes, yeah, let's take a chance on him. He's a goalie. We kind of like him. Who knows where he goes from here? The Lightning do have the advantage of him being a little bit further along in his development, being a person who will turn 20 in September. He may go back for an overage season with Lethbridge, but maybe he's an ECHL guy right away, and maybe he could be on the fast track to the NHL if things really work out for him. He didn't stand out a tremendous amount to me as a 7th round draft pick, but it's the 7th round. I don't know what you want from me. We'll see what happens with him, and if he's a goalie that works out, then fantastic. Good for Tampa. So for me, the Tampa Bay Lightning get a 3B, and I know that sounds bad, but to me, they just drafted a lot of decent hockey players that have relatively limited upside, but with some high risk and high upside swings mixed in here and there, and I think overall they did decently well. I think Jan Golic is a bit of a risk, but there is upside with his size and how he skates. Hagen Burrows and Kaden Petra, Joe Connor, they're all solid hockey players, and we'll see where they go from here. I really like the swings on Saarelainen and Steen, and maybe those guys are long shots themselves, but they're at least a lot of fun to watch. And Harrison Menan, who knows? Big wild card. So just have some fun while they have these players, because I think they did pretty decently across the board, even if they didn't swing for the fences a whole lot, especially considering they didn't have a pick in the top 100 and they still drafted 7 players. I'm interested in where this draft class goes in the next few years. So that's it for the Tampa Bay Lightning. If you liked the video, you can go to our description box and find our Fanatics affiliate link, where anything you buy in the store will give us a small kickback, or you can go to Scouching.ca, where a subscription will get you access to exclusive blog content, data tables for drafted and undrafted prospects around the world, as well as plenty of other cool toys you won't find anywhere else. So that's it for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we are down to our last 3, and our next team will be the Pittsburgh Penguins.